We are here today with recent Rutgers alum and Jeopardy champion Scott Riccardi. Scott, can you start by telling me a little bit about yourself?
I'm Scott Riccardi. I graduated from the Rutgers School of Engineering in 2021, and I'm a lifelong resident of New Jersey from South Plainfield and Somerville.
And how has your day been so far?
It's been nice. I got to take a nice nostalgic walk from the Werblin parking lot over to here, and it's a beautiful day for this, so I'm excited.
Awesome. Are you ready to take a little walk around Bush?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, do you have a favorite memory here on the Bush campus?
Yeah, so the very first week of classes, they have something called the Scarlet Carnival, and I was in the Bush Student Center, and one of my friends came over and she told me there's dispensers full of this impossibly good milk that tastes exactly like a milkshake. So we spent the better part of an afternoon just absolutely downing these impossibly milkshakey milks. And then another friend came over and told us, you guys know you're drinking straight creamer, right? And he completely shattered the ignorant bliss that we had had.
You gotta love some creamer though.
You gotta.
What about an overall Rutgers memory?
Overall, there was a very unusual semester where for whatever reason there were a lot of unofficial animal mascots on campuses, where you already kind of have the ever-present bush geese and bush squirrels. But this particular semester, we were getting these constant pretty suspenseful text blasts every now and then about an aggressive coyote that kept getting spotted on campus, and we just kind of kept wondering where it would turn up next. And then that same semester, someone had thrown a lobster from King Neptune Night into a tree on Voorhees Mall, and a little unofficial cult popped around it, and everyone started calling him Lord Snip.
I do remember Lord Snip when I was here. What was your favorite class here at Rutgers?
I really enjoyed the CAD for engineering class that I took. 3D modeling kind of feels like it's very intuitive, and the exams felt like timed puzzles rather than real tests, because you would just start with a drawing and then have about an hour to make a full model out of it. And for the final project, I got to model a roller coaster train track and launch system, which is something I probably would have done for fun anyway.
That sounds really cool. And what did you like doing outside of the classroom?
Outside of the classroom, I was part of the Rutgers Club racquetball team for my entire time here. I did the spring concert band whenever I was able to. I was part of intramural volleyball, and Rutgers is actually where I started really cooking and baking when I lived in Easton Ave apartments.
Definitely staying busy. And what have you been up to since graduating?
Since graduating, I spent a little time kind of bouncing around trying to figure out what job and what place was really best for me. So I was in South Plainfield for a year, and then Kingston, and now I'm in Somerville. I started in energy engineering based on the job that I had my senior year, and then I pivoted to design engineering, and now I'm in a support engineer role for security integration.
Nice. So let's start talking about Jeopardy. Have you always wanted to be on Jeopardy?
With Jeopardy, it was always nightly viewing in my household. It was pretty much always the thing that we would watch while eating dinner. It didn't occur to me for a while that it was something I could actually be on. Sometime in college, I realized I think I actually maybe did have what it took to be on the show. And then a little bit after graduating, it felt like things were finally stable enough that I just went and took the test, and everything happened to work out far better than I could have possibly expected on the first try.
And for those that don't know, how many games did you end up winning in a row?
I won 16 games in a row.
So tell me, how do you do that?
Well, it's really just about staying very focused, and ultimately, you gotta have a good time up there. That's really what it was. I think by my 8th game, I realized I was not nervous at all anymore, and I was just there to play my favorite game show.
Great. And what was the first thing you bought after winning?
Well, this is a little underwhelming, but I thought to myself, well, now that I won, I could get some nice kitchen gadgets, really trick things out for baking. And I thought I can finally get one of these fancy cake spinners that I've always wanted for icing and decorating cakes. And I went online and I checked it out, and I found out they only cost $30. So there was nothing stopping me from getting one the entire time.
Hey, you'll get plenty of use out of it. So now that you're a Jeopardy champion, you'll be going back for the Tournament of Champions. How are you planning to prepare?
I'm mostly planning on keeping a pretty steady pace and not cramming too hard, because I don't want any new information to really push out anything old or for it to not retain too well. So I'm just trying to learn a healthy amount of new things every day and review what's really important. If possible, I am trying to get a sense of what some of my opponent's strengths and weaknesses might be, just so I can be a little smarter about my clue selection. But ultimately, I think the real X factor is going to be if I can get my buzzer momentum back, and that's something I really won't be able to get a hold of until the day comes.
It's a good strategy. So if you could have an ideal Jeopardy category, what would it be?
I think if I could take something that I'm pretty interested in, but is pretty inaccessible, and then added an extra layer of inaccessibility through wordplay, that would really be nice. So if I could take a category that was, really talented improv comedians, and then add a wordplay layer, so, maybe take a Pumpkin Floats and anagram it to Paul F. Tompkins, or before and after that's Andy Daly Double, I think I would really eat that up.
I don't think anybody else would be able to, so you definitely have that category in the bag. Did any of the categories you had surprise you in a good way?
Yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised with very low expectations when it came to the movie titles in Italian category, because I'm aware of a lot of movies, but I haven't really seen nearly enough, and most importantly, I don't speak Italian at all. So it really just ended up being a slapdash effort for me to rack my brain for my high school Spanish knowledge, hope it sort of applied to Italian, and then look for cognates, because otherwise it was really just kind of by the seat of my pants, hope I figured it out. And I managed to get 4 of them, which was far better than I could have hoped.
Oh, that's an interesting category. How did your friends and family react when they saw you on TV?
I mean, they were all overjoyed. I was getting supportive messages from them the entire lead up, and as it was happening, there was a certain arc to it where for the very first game, they were really cautiously optimistic. They were like, oh, I really hope he wins. They believed in me, but they understood that Jeopardy's very hard, and they saw me go into Final Jeopardy not in the lead, and they all thought, wow, it actually could just end right here. Fortunately, it didn't. And then there was kind of an interesting moment where I watched it dawn on them that this was going to be a much longer run than I or anybody else was really expecting it to be. And then, of course, towards the end, there was another inflection point where people kind of started to get really high expectations, and they thought I might never lose. So it was tough to really cushion the blow there without spoiling anything for them.
Got it. Well, you definitely did a great job. So do you have any advice for handling situations that feel intimidating or nerve-wracking?
It's a little cliche, but obviously you gotta stay calm. I think it's important to adapt when you need to. It's really important that you don't rush any of your thoughts or actions. Just really keep it slow. I know there's always a temptation for me to buzz faster, but it's much more about timing than speed. And obviously this is a bit of a big ask, but it's important to try to have fun if you possibly can. Like I'm not gonna say my legs weren't shaking behind that podium, but ultimately, the more I started to enjoy myself, the better it went.
And we mentioned baking before. Do you have a favorite thing that you like to bake?
Ever since college, I've had a vanilla bean cheesecake that I love baking. I've always thought that vanilla beans don't get quite enough respect as a flavor. And so this cheesecake has vanilla beans in the base and in the whipped cream layer on top. And then in the middle, there's a white chocolate mousse. So it's really smooth and it makes for a great cross section. And there was a time in college where when I was worried about the expiration date coming up, I found myself eating as much as 1/6 of this whole cheesecake per sitting.
I might need to try some of that, and you're definitely starting the vanilla bean movement. You mentioned on the show that you're a bit of a gamer. Do you have a favorite game?
100% it's Outer Wilds. It's just full of overlapping mysteries and environmental puzzles. The game really doesn't tell you where to go or what to do at any point, so it's entirely self-directed by the player's curiosity. And you don't unlock anything, you just gain information, and that information just leads you to more information until eventually you've solved the entire game like it's a giant puzzle box.
I've heard that's a good one. You also mentioned that you're a little bit of a Super Smash Bros. Champion. So who is your Super Smash Bros. Main?
I've mained Bayonetta for about 5 years now. She is a centuries-old witch who summons demons with her hair and has weaponized high heels, and her whole game plan is about flashy combos.
Yes, Bayonetta's pretty awesome, but I am a Kirby main myself. We also hear you're into video game music and composing. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Back in high school, I realized I really enjoy the self-imposed challenge of transcribing video game music by ear, breaking it down kind of note by note, so then I can either remaster it if it's a little older or build it up into something new. So I like to do that for games that are kind of from my childhood where there were more technological limitations on how video game music could sound. So I really like to do that with, Nintendo 64 games, GameCube games, Wii games, like, Banjo-Kazooie, Pokemon Coliseum, Dokapon Kingdom.
That's awesome. If you could be on any other game or competition show, what would it be?
Well, leaving out all the other, trivia ones that are out there, I always like the idea of competition shows that turn comedy into competition, so something like Game Changer on Dropout. But that being said, I always thought growing up that I would armchair quarterback all the contestants on that show Hole in the Wall, where they would have like 5 seconds to react to a cutout that was coming their way and fit through it, or they'd get pushed into water. So there's options.
That was always a fun one. Okay, rapid fire question time, but in true Jeopardy fashion, you have to answer in the form of a question. So, favorite TV show?
What is 30 Rock?
Go-to karaoke song?
What is I'll Make a Man Out of You from Mulan or No Scrubs by TLC?
Ooh, those are both really good ones. Favorite beverage?
What is Stewart's Key Lime Soda?
Ooh. Most used phone app?
What is Wikipedia?
Makes sense for Jeopardy. And last but not least, favorite board game?
What is, if Mahjong doesn't count, I've really been into Cascadia lately.
Ooh, okay, great job. So as we start to wrap things up, why did you choose to come to Rutgers?
So with Rutgers, I really always love the fact that it's kind of a small city and it's got this interconnected bus system which makes it feel so alive. And so many people that I know either were already going here or were planning on going here, so I knew it would be a really nice place where I'd be surrounded by a lot of people that I already knew.
Awesome. And last question, if you could give one piece of advice to an incoming Rutgers student, what would it be?
So we know that college is a place that you come to invest in yourself education-wise, but I think it really can't be overlooked how important it is to come here and use it as an opportunity to make yourself just better and deeper as a person.
Awesome. Scott, thank you so much for being here today, and we're looking forward to seeing you on the Tournament of Champions.
Thanks, it was a pleasure.